I'll kick it off. We've got one question when we were speaking last night and discussing around the table were some of the challenges that SMEs face starting out. And they came up today in the presentations: investment, sales, routes to market. What solutions do you think are there at the moment to help people overcome these challenges? What's out there in the marketplace that they can approach?
I think that's not an obvious question, obvious answer actually, because I personally believe that there's a lot of companies out there who aren't necessarily giving the best advice. My own personal belief, on the other hand, is that we should be learning. In fact, I'm passionate about this. Not that you'd have picked this up, of course. We should be learning from those companies that in this economy are powering forward, and we can learn from them, and it makes all the difference because what they're doing is working. Anyone else got anything else?
I suppose, coming from my background, I would say that the product you're trying to sell should have a contribution in it that other competitor products don't have. I think you're fooling yourself if you have something that's just a me-too product and you think just talking about it will make it work in the market. You need to concentrate on getting features, functions, some aspect that you're making a unique contribution with, or as good an incremental contribution as you can possibly think of.
I think from a technology point of view, as I said about kind of 4G, is stick with what you've got just now and then innovate for the future. I mean, don't keep waiting for the next fastest, bestest, quickest thing, because it'll take a while for companies like, mobile phone carriers like ourselves and stuff to actually launch the product. So innovate with what you've got and then move forward. And I think in Scotland specifically, there seems to be a hesitant, especially in the public sector, to actually innovate in what they have right now, to look towards a future vision. And I think we talked about this last night, having a vision that everybody buys into for the future, which then kind of determine what's the old proverb, start with the end in mind. I mean, I think I get littered at different events and workshops about journeys. Great, fantastic, let's all go on a journey. We don't actually have a destination. I mean, would you go in your car to go somewhere on holiday and just go on a journey? Don't have a final destination. What did you do for 2 weeks? I went on a journey. Start with the end in mind, start with the end goal, and then work back in terms of the steps to get there. And I think it's crucial in getting innovation to work.
Okay, thanks. Questions?
Just an observation to that. I think what you're talking about is not just technology innovation, not just technical innovation, but different ways in which to address customer needs, absolutely. Identify that pain. So it's not just technology. It's like you're saying 4G isn't a solution.
No.
4G is just a technology advancement.
It's a springboard. It's a springboard for innovation.
So any questions? You've got a question at the back.
We're New Start, and we're not a spin out of a university, and we've actually created quite a high-level software, design for a global usage. The issue that we have is we can't actually open up our product to the market without filing patents. And this is the question I have: is through your experience, how can we raise what capital is out there? How can we raise enough money for patents if we can't actually promote our product? And it's a catch-22, and there's no provision in Scotland for these types of new startups of geeks that are in their room working on very high-level sophisticated software. There's audits, fair enough, we've got that, and there is funding further down the line through SMART and Edge, and we've been through that, and there are teams sitting, waiting, and we have already applications written. But that initial starting block, which is patent filing, there's no provision here in Scotland. And maybe I've missed something, so that's why I'm here, is a question. Do you know of something that we've missed?
I think this is a personal view, not expressed by O2. From talking to small to medium enterprise high-tech companies, there is something missing in Scotland, I think personally. I mean, Skyscanner got investment from London. I do know of investment companies in Edinburgh who are looking to invest, but there seems to be some sort of block. I personally don't know what that is, it's above me, but I definitely think that there's something missing in the whole jigsaw in Scotland for investment in companies that are not spun out from the second biggest informatics department in the world, which is Edinburgh University, and there has to be something there for the locals as well.
With regard to patenting, I mean, you can get protection in Britain by doing it yourself for probably £50. I mean, we initially protected our product by, I wrote it myself because I'd had some background in that with Hewlett-Packard, but it's not difficult. You can protect something, but when it has to go on to become a PCT, you really need to go to an agent. And then when it's being nationalised in other countries, it's the same thing. But you can get it, but of course, as soon as you have, you put a filing date on it, that's your filing date, and it will time out. You have to decide later, a year or two, 2 years down the road, what you're going to do about it. But you can do it for virtually nothing if you want to do it yourself. Right, it's not. The thing I would say about the patent scene is that it is the. Now this is terrible. Maybe patent people in the room. I mean, one always thinks that perhaps legal companies and accounting companies, you might think, oh my goodness me, the fees are high. But if you go to one of the bigger patent companies, they are astronomically high, and you are charged hundreds and hundreds of pounds for somebody taking note of a letter. It's a terrible industry.
I think for maybe it's just specific to our product. What we've come across is if we file it by ourselves and there's an element that actually should have been checked and been different, then we have an issue. And that is why we've been advised to hold back and actually go through the, the full scale of requiring a patent. Check for it. So that's, yes, it maybe works and is relevant to some, but yeah, it doesn't meet our need. And I'm not the only one.
Yes. I mean, talking around, have you talked to quite a number of people involved in the patent scene and not just relied on a big company? There are lots of smaller companies around to have a chat to.
Yes, yes, I mean, a lot of people sort of know the background. Why I'm here is because it's always good to know someone else that might have another idea. Mm-hmm. They all need there is a benchmark. Yes, the minimum is 4K. I mean, it starts there, and then international is 10K. That's the minimum.
Are you absolutely certain you know the position legally of software of your kind within the patent system? Because there is quite a lot of debate at times as to what is actually patentable and what is not in software.
Yeah, the encryption element is what we can patent. Yeah.
To be honest, I don't have an awful lot more to add to what's been said, except that I agree totally with what Martyn says. There is a gap, but I do think that two things. First of all, if you read the statistics, something like 80% of businesses go bust in the first year, and then that leaves 20% left. So in the next from 2 to 5 years, another 80% go bust. So you can, it's just unfortunate because it means that people are very, very hesitant to put money in until they're further down the road. So I've heard this story over and over, and all I can say is what you're doing sounds, you're on the right track. It's creativity. I have heard so many people who have just looked in the most unusual places, unfortunately quite often family, or as you heard from Abcam, they walked around with a bucket of antibodies in ice, and just really wacky ideas that actually made the difference between them getting started or not. Sorry, I can't be more positive.
Can I just add to that as well? So has anyone mentioned to you the investor readiness grant?
Today we sort of looked at that. It doesn't necessarily cover
It should cover patents, yeah. So if you need to apply for, it would be 50%. So if you need to apply for a patent in order to receive investment, that's activity that you need to do in order to receive investment, and Scottish Enterprise will help pay for that. So we can speak about it in more detail later, but there's...
Okay, that's great, thanks. Any other questions, Alan?
I'm just going to add a slightly different perspective. I don't know. So I was going to add a slightly different perspective. I don't know if this kind of will apply to you and your software. So previously I've been through a patent process and it was for a hardware product. And the different perspective I want to give you is sometimes patents can be a negative, it can be a drawback, it can hold you back. And this time round, with the product that we've developed now, although we still have a window of opportunity to do something, we made what was a very tough decision to actually go to market without I guess, a recorded IP. Most of the IP exists within my head, if you like, as far as designing the product. And going back to some of the stuff that Jane was talking about earlier on, you know, if you can identify your niche market and do it properly, sometimes just having the lead on your competitors with your unique element to your product can be enough to, you know, to establish you. Obviously generate the revenue, and then you can look at the value adds to the what would have initially been your existing patent, and look to perhaps patent that. But so far it's worked for us. Although I appreciate, you know, it's not a software product that we have; it's a hardware product.
I can't actually emphasise what you just said strongly enough. I have seen so many organisations looking for funding, and they haven't thought through the niche. They aren't able to explain the pain in enough detail, and funnily enough, if you go to them with a business case where it's so well thought out and the benefit is just laser clear, then I think it's more than half the way there. And all of a sudden people are going, yeah, of course, we'll give you money.
If I could just add one thing, on the hardware side, patenting is often, you have to do it because the product is easily seen by people and could be copied if you don't to do something about it. But is there any reason why you can't keep the software of your product actually concealed so it is not easily seen by anyone else?
The issue is the minute you make something publicly available, you can't get VC and you can't be bought over. And the point that we have is it's a white label and it should be bought one day by somebody without the initial patent. That opportunity won't be available to us. And larger organisations will not take the product on board if it doesn't have a patent, because then they will be compromised with the compromisation.
It's a real two-edged sword because you put it in the public domain in the patent, whereas they probably would not be able to see it unless you did that.
We're dancing right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
A question for Jane initially. A company follows the sort of guidance and the points and the path that you outlined there in identifying what the customer's pain is. And if you take companies like Apogee that you referred to, they clearly have been very successful in changing their business model and are growing over multiple years. What puzzles me is that what was the competition's response? This was not an industry which was protected by the technology or patents. What was the competition up to? And assuming that the competition actually did respond and started to adopt a similar strategy, how do you address that on an ongoing basis? I understand, you know, initially, great idea, but it assumes that nobody else is going to react.
That's a really good point, Stephen. Thank you very much. The interesting thing is that the normal way of running businesses today seems to be about copying others. So if someone sees someone doing that, eventually they will copy. Having said that, they'll try to copy what they can perceive. So they won't understand how close they get to their customers. But on the other hand, Apogee does something what they call a blank canvas. They make no bones about it. They are actually going in there and they're really understanding their customers in a lot of depth. Having said that, they've now got years of a lead. And so no one has managed to copy them, strangely enough. But on the other hand, you know, Apple's obviously another example of an organisation that actually struggled for years and years and years to get a grasp, and then they really hit the sweet spot, and immediately everyone's there copying them en masse. Yet again, Steve Jobs happened to have an empathy for customers, and not just that, what Martyn was mentioning, a vision of making a dent in the universe, quite some vision, eh? And not just that, a vision for taking a clunky, technical, functional market that is IT and making it beautiful. So when even that isn't going to give them years and years. Yeah, I know Martyn's laughing at that, but that's the case, isn't it?
In the case of Apple, because they're under, I would suggest, under pressure now from somebody like Samsung.
And that, yes, absolutely, very much so. And of course, now that they've lost Steve Jobs, I can't tell you any examples of companies growing at the speed I was talking about where they've lost their chief exec and managed to carry on doing it. So all you can do is that once you've got it in your mindset, then you keep on reinventing. You keep on reinventing. And each time you keep on reinventing, it gets better and better. And your ability to reinvent is much better than your competitors. Anyone else?
I think just a point is it's not all about looks, it's about quality. That's why I'm single. But it has to be the quality of the product. If you have something glitzy, you know, what's the old saying? You can't polish a turd. Sorry to be so graphic before lunch. Enjoy the chocolate brownies. But if you look at it, has to be the actual quality of the product itself rather than the aesthetics of it. And in terms of reinvention, from our perspective as O2, we noticed the market changing when smartphones started taking dominance. When we got to sort of like 30-40% of our 23 million customers had smartphones, we realised as a company that there was 4 free downloadable apps on app stores on iOS and Android, which would wipe out 70% of our profits overnight like that if they started using them. So in terms of reinventing, digital services company is one, understanding the customer need is number 2. And we looked at the likes of Skype. You know, we launched a free product, which I'm obviously using, I'm an advocate, but called Tugo, T-U-G-O, which basically means your mobile phone number's portable. And this basically is a free app you can put on your iPad, and if your phone rings, your normal phone rings, it will ring your iPad as well at the same time. Now, putting an iPad up to your ear, you need a slap. So I'd recommend using a headset, whether Bluetooth, don't wear it in the middle of shopping malls as well, that's another rant for another day. But using a headset to actually have your number portable, and you can make calls from the iPad as well, which means that your number, your minutes, your whatever solution you're on in terms of your contract, it comes out of there, whether it's by text or by your phone minutes. Now, we had a target at the end of February when we launched it for 3 months, and we thrashed it in, I think, 10 days in terms of downloads of the app across the piece. But it showed that the customer need was there, the customer request was there, and it means when I go on holiday with my daughter to Spain, I will be working for a week, unfortunately, across there, but I can use my iPad on the beach. I won't tell. In fact, has this been recorded? I won't tell my bosses where I am, but I can still, you know, be portable. And that's in terms of reinvention. And hence the fact we've got Telefonica Digital, looking at digital product sets across the overlay on top of the network. The network is you know, I get pulled up by HR for calling my colleagues platform sellers. Because you're selling a platform, you're selling connectivity, whether it's broadband, as I say, Wi-Fi, 4G, 3G, GPRS, and Edge. I do the glitz and the glamour. I don't polish the turd, but I do have something that's tangible, which will make that experience for the customer much, much better. And I think that's in the whole in terms of just rebranding, reinventing, and understanding the customer needs. But we have the vision as a digital services company.
And if I can just support that, the reason that O2 can do that is because they have years and years and years of working at looking after their customers. And obviously their technical prowess as well, but otherwise they would have struggled. So once you have that level, it's very difficult to compete. Even Vodafone finds it hard to compete. You'd like to hear that, wouldn't you?
No comment.
Okay, yeah, question in the middle.
Nice plug-in to go, by the way. I wonder how many people have downloaded that when they leave the room. I've actually got a question for Jane. I love this stuff about attracting bees to the honeypot. How do you find their pain without just going on guesses or assumptions?
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. So there's only one way, and actually, sadly, normal market research is quite often misleading. You somehow need to get to the point where you can empathise so well with your customers that you can actually feel that pain. So, for instance, I have something called the customer insight methodology, but the key elements of it are that I go out, I talk to representative people within that niche target market. I understand what it is that they're trying to achieve. I understand what is in their way. What are the barriers that are in their way? So what is that pain? And then I understand what the experience they would love to work with. And if you talk to enough customers, you can do this over lunch, you can do this through friends, be creative about it. You need to get to people and try and get them relaxed, get them to talk about their passion, get them to talk about where they're going and what's in the way. And if you speak to enough, and to be honest, sometimes 10 or 12 really good conversations, that might sound frightening, but it can build up over time. Even 2 or 3 will start you thinking. But if you get to the point of 10 or 12, you'll start to see a trend and you'll start to say, and the interesting thing is none of your competitors will have that depth. None of them. Did I answer your question?
You did, thank you.
I think to add to that, if the niche is narrow enough, this is all much more feasible. If you haven't narrowed the niche enough, you'll find difficulty spotting the patterns.
I think something that we've used is crowdsourcing, so whether it be internal or external. So external is using the likes of social media, Facebook, Twitter, to get opinions and feedback so we can make the experience better. Internally, we deployed Yammer, which was bought by Microsoft. So it's like an internal Twitter. So we basically put up questions of the week where we get all the staff to basically then come up with their own ideas to help push the innovation internally of how we can actually serve customers better as well. Also, we had a crowdsourcing project internally a few years ago where we had staff come together and they could win prizes by, better customer experience, how we would do things. And it's using that social media thing. I have tweeted earlier on for a bunch of innovators in an innovation place. It's very, very quiet on Twitter, guys. There's not many questions coming through Twitter feeds. You're meant to be innovators. Use the social media to your advantage and get out there and talk to the market. Use what's out there. Get your message out there and see what people come back with. Because that could be that small nugget that could actually change how you actually engage with your customer base going forward.
And just to build on that, if you ever get, this is a one-off and it will either suit you or not, but if you can ever get the opportunity to write on a very popular blog of and where your target market are going to be reading, and you write about something that is of relevance to them, then you can even ask questions at the end of the blog that will start to get you some insights. It's not going to be as in-depth of having those one-to-one conversations, but there's a guy out there called John Morrow who's just the guru of blogging, and he has managed to do this so incredibly well that he uses it to feed. So you could maybe do something like that.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? I've got something, because we work with startups, and one of the things that comes up all the time is the business plan and the cash flow, and we've not really discussed that today. Some of the things you were talking about in terms of, when I look at business plan, you never see a topic on customer service, which is interesting. How do you feel about the business plan process and cash flow forecasting in terms of the innovation model?
The problem with most business plans is they sit on a shelf and then they're forgotten. A business plan must live in your business. It must be something that inspires you. It needs something, for instance, with a vision, such as Martyn mentioned, that you are living on a day-to-day basis. There's a really great guy called Vern Harnish who talks about having a business plan on one big sheet of A3. If it's too complicated, if it's too long, I'm not saying that you just create something in a day. I'm saying you put the thought into it. It's about knowing where you're going, knowing where you are, knowing the big steps that will take you from where you are to where you're going. Okay? And the cash flow part of it is obviously key part to that. And it's a case of you working it out in your very intelligent minds and working it through. And then just having a short document that reminds you. Did I answer all your elements?
Yes, no, that's excellent. Thank you.
Yes, I'd agree entirely. You must have a business plan. You must be updating it regularly. Make it as visual as possible so that you can internalise it. I mean, the large pie charts, whatever. Try and spot the differences by eyeballing something rather than have to go through pages and pages of numerical data. Yeah.
Again, based on what they said, but I think based on internal experience. excuse me, I've been plugging apps. We launched Priority Moments. I know there's somebody out there demonstrating positional advertising, which is fantastic. We've done Priority Moments for a while, and we were ready to launch until a week before launch. We realised that the business plan didn't match the experience, and that was purely down to the reason of, well, we're segregating a large proportion of customers because this only works on smartphones. So we took it all the way back to then create a text-based solution. So basically, again, building what the platform is. So instead of giving people, well, you have to have an iPhone, you have to have a Google Android device. It's a case of, well, you can use any device. You could have a Nokia, you could have a BlackBerry, you could have anything. Did I say BlackBerry after Nokia? That's unusual. So basically having the experience and then looking at the business plan, but it has to match up. And it was the vision of having the best customer experience, the best offers, at the best time, in the best locations. I think it was kind of maybe paraphrase what the vision was, but it was basically going back to brass tacks and then building from the business case back up to get the end goal. And I think that was quite key in terms of how we did that digital product out to market.
Okay, thank you.